Okay, good evening, everyone, and both in our Zoom and Facebook platform. Welcome to our HA TikTok series, episode 2, organized by Harmony Center. And my name is Liana, and I will be your host as well as the moderator for tonight. So to know more the concept behind the series and why is it called HA TikToks, I would encourage everyone to check out our episode 1, and you can find the link in the Zoom chat box as well as in the Facebook comments. For a start, we have chosen the main theme, navigating safe space, strengthening faith and family ties in COVID-19 to kickstart with this series. In the first episode, we have spoken about family and conversation, living with faith in the new norm. Our speakers and discussants shared insights on the reduction of social trust during the periods of crisis. We also talk about interracial and interreligious trust increases over the years, yet more needs to be done to combat xenophobic attitude affecting several groups in the society, such as the migrant workers and foreigners. We also talk about ways to address fault lines with family members and how faith can be a source of hope to enforce values such as compassion, kindness, caring, and resilience in difficult times. Tonight's topic will be on family and parenting, multitasking, and holding to faith in times of COVID-19. To set the context, the COVID-19 pandemic has substantially changed the way we live and work, and technology is making working from home a viable option for many of us during the pandemic. While many employees welcome it, others might find themselves facing a very different reality. For working parents, working from home has several pain points. Many husbands are pulling up their weight at home, while mothers reported that parenting load has intensified during the pandemic as families remain in confined spaces. While some appreciate the unplanned quality times with their children, for those with little ones, supervising their children's learning at home while rushing for tight deadlines is a struggle. These demands are even greater for parents who must additionally care for older adults or children with chronic behavioral problems, special needs, or disabilities. Given the high degree of economic uncertainty facing many families, parents are often caring for their children under stressful conditions with limited resources. Circuit breaker has disrupted social connections and parents' ability to access support from family members as well as their extended communities in Singapore. Parents who previously depended on families, mosques, temples, churches, schools, and neighbors for caregiving support, financial help, and social interaction now find themselves cut off from this support system. According to a survey done by Focus on Families Singapore, 60% of mothers reported stress levels of 7 or higher on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 representing the most stress. This contrasts with 52% of mothers reporting similar stress level last year. Amidst of attempting to adapt to the home-based learning, parents are also grappling to compensate the routines of sending their children to religious classes, to learning religion at home. Inevitably, most families resort to attend religious classes and observe festivities online. Hence, through this second episode, we will be discussing this pressing issue with our panel of experts who will be sharing their tips on how to adapt to these unprecedented times, work towards self-care, and attain balance between parental responsibility and spiritual needs as we continue to move on to live in these new realities. So tonight, I would like to introduce to you our two speakers, Mr. Tan Teck Hui and Ms. Michelle Kui. So the first one, Mr. Tan Teck Hui, he's a social worker with one of the family centers in Singapore. He is an experienced social worker working with family and young children, a Taoist by faith. He also continues to practice and be very active in the Taoist community. The second one, we have Miss Michelle Quay. So Miss Michelle, she is working full-time as a high school counselor at SJI International School. Professionally, she works with adolescents to address social emotional issues and runs parent group to deal with parenting concerns and improve family relationships. She is married and has two teenage boys, 14 and 16 years old. Michelle is also a Baha'i and she serves as a member of the LSA, Local Spiritual Assembly of McPherson, an administrative and spiritual body of one of the localities in Singapore. She participates actively in community building, activities like devotional gatherings and study circle. With her interest in music, she sings and performs in various gatherings and has composed numerous tunes to the Baha'i writings. I think that was quite an enchanting background profile of Miss Michelle Quay beyond just being an educator. Now, the sharing by our two speakers will be based on the key question displayed here. So without further ado, I would like to invite our first speaker, Mr. Tan Teck Hui, to present your sharing.
Hello everyone. Can anyone? I think everyone can hear me, right? So I'll carry on with this with my sharing. Today is very honored to be uh, invited by Harmony Center to be involved in the second episode of the TikToks. So today I'm going to share with you some of my experience working in the Family Service Center and would present a few cases, if possible, about how the family are coping during this circuit breaker uh, period. So without further ado, I'll share my screen. Then you can take a look at my slide. Okay, starting with the first the first slide will be we are for tonight we'll be focusing on family and parenting. It is a very difficult task because raising a family is not easy. You have family members, and especially is more challenging. We have young children and children with special needs or family of different components such as low income family, single parent family, living in a sandwich generation kind of family. That adds up a lot of stress even in normal day. And now with circuit breaker coming in and families members have to live together, there are for sure there are a lot of advantages and there are also disadvantages. So without further ado, we will look into the advantages. So what are the advantages of working from home? We are looking at the impact, the positive aspect of working from home. We are looking at family times. Why family times is very important? We are looking at building up family bonds to foster closer ties. We are as a human being, we need family, and family is our first people in the world that you meet, especially your parents. So family times are very important. It really help us to create an identity coming from. Oh, that means we belongs to this group. So that's why home isolation really brings up a time where we can get together, we can see each other every day, we can have meals together, finally enjoy special moments. All these are really part of what we as a human being we need is love. So coming on is it is also really a break from the hectic schedule, a time really for individual to recharge and also to get away from work. Why we are saying that? Because when we are working, right, most of the time we spend lesser time with the family, uh, maybe during weekend or even in the evening. So the circuit breaker, uh, staying at home really helps you to be spend more time at home. This is where you can get together with your family members, have meals together, watch TV, watch a movie, have a discussion, one-to-one talk. Yeah. So this is something that break out of the norm lah, that okay, you have to go to work, but now you work at home. We also see a trend that there are more involvement from dads. That comes in really as a surprise, that actually comes in to help the mom in all the traditional family, even with the national campaign, that that daddies are more involved in the role of the parenting. Yeah, so it really helps in with that coming as another pair of hand to help the mom to run the family. It also gives us a sense of assurance to the wife that, oh, my husband is not lying on the couch and eating potato chips and not I'm involved with the family. He is spending more time building up relationship with the children and building up relationship with the wife. We also see as another point of advantages is there is technology improvement. We can meet without meeting in person. Like now, as you can see that we are meeting together using Zoom. So it opens up a new aspect of life that we have not seen before. Like even before circuit breaker, we have not heard of Zoom or whatever that is, and we don't feel comfortable in using the technology. But a few months later, if you can see everyone is on Zoom, if you are asking a friend, hey, are you on Zoom meeting, they will find it that yeah, they are really in the meeting, and it's not a new term anymore, it's more like a norm. So living in home isolation really build up a time that we can use the technology to get more closer to people. You can also use Zoom or other like WhatsApp video to talk to family that are not living with you. Cross family, as long as you have an internet, communication is always possible. So this is the advantages of working from home. How about the disadvantages that so there are various disadvantages. What I had seen in the family service center, uh, quite in recent months, is the increase of conflict, leading to relation breakdown. Uh, then there are cases that talks about divorce, and also an increase in family violence. Uh, violence means it can be spousal abuse, child abuse. Usually it's child abuse and spousal abuse are on the rise. Like if you see that's the trend. Coming in as the parenting, more pressure and more challenges. Why do I say that? Some family we have do face parenting issues, managing children uh, that we term as not so nice as naughty children. So parents have more times. In the past, they will leave the children at student care, child care, or even with the grandparents. So the time spent together is not really there. With this home isolation, that they are spending more time with the children. But we have to ask a question: does the parent knows how to parent the child? If the parents is more and have a lot of anxiety on wanting the child to follow their expectation, then that of course there are conflict that has happened. So that's where parenting become a stress or even pressure for the family. We are looking at space constraint. This refer to large size family living in small unit, uh, living in rental units such as one room or two room. Then if you have 8 or 7 family members squeezing in such small size flat, right? Then space consent becomes a problem. How are you going to have your privacy? Uh, you have so many children living together, then there's bound to be a lot of this misunderstanding, miscommunication, and also fights. Home isolation also means increase in financial difficulty. Low income workers, non-essential workers will not be able to work, and that means a loss of income. Living at home means using a lot of electricity. The water usage is also high. Yeah, so this is also an increase of utility and decrease in saving. Why do I say decrease in saving? When you live at home, you have to cook more meals at home. You have to buy more things for the children, toys. Maybe toys, I know, online, because now, yeah, the only thing you have is online, buying from online. So that's where money becomes smaller, and financial issue is becomes a struggling for the family, especially low income family, where they may stop work and they don't have money. Some family do, like the main only has one sole breadwinner, and if the sole breadwinner don't work, then of course what it will means that there will be no income for the family. Online space, we are looking at a new kind of spectrum that has emerged from the circuit breaker because of the COVID-19 situation. So more children, I do acknowledge that they do have a device like phone, iPad, and some of them really goes online, uh, go into their online world. So we are looking at possibility of safety. Is there safety measure at home or not? So what are the internet danger that we are looking at? There may be scam, there may be pornography that is there. Yeah, so online platform becomes a concern for parents because they may not know what the children are being engaged on online. They only know all the children are online, but are they in a safe space online? So these are some of the disadvantages that has come out very clearly in our cases during the home isolation. Oh, home isolation has a very long impact, and return to normalcy needs time. As you can see that now we are still in phase 2 and phase 3 is slowly coming in. It really takes a few months. It has been since April. Till now is more than about 6 months. So we can see that it is giving a long impact, and it's not like this year. It may impact to may have a longer impact to next year. Even like the flight, you can't even travel to unless there's a urgent need for you to travel lah. If not, then you are unable to travel. So what we foresee that there is possibility of family breakdown, where family members don't get along and they start having fight conflict, leading to divorce or leading to family violence, which the change is irreversible. We are also looking at parenting becomes a challenge. Why some of the parents will fall back to physical punishment because it's some of them will find it that it's an easy form of disciplining the child, or giving of or even as a supervision to make sure that the child follow what the parents wants. So there is a very thin line that is physical punishment, when will it become an abuse. So we are quite worried, right? Because the parents intention is more like, oh, I want to teach the children some a lesson, but when do you cross the line to become an abuse? So there is very gray area, and sometimes physical violence do leads to abuse, and that will have a very long lasting negative impact on the children. Usually low self-esteem is one of the symptoms that we do see, that okay, parent long-term use of physical punishment on the children. Next comes the family violence, which, as I've explained, spousal violence is on the increase, um, where spouses will hit another their partners. It can it can be a morbid, like, or mental illness comes in with addiction such as alcohol drinking, and inflicting violence on the wife, or even sometimes the wife do inflict violence on the husband. We are looking at recession. If you look at the national news, you will get to see, okay, recession, it may be coming. This is not so good compared to that year. So we can see that the long impact of the COVID situation do leads to recession, where business are closing down, people are being retrenched, and they are unable to find job. And for those with financial difficulty, then that will be more on tapping on the national financial security, where they will go to community to get financial assistance. So if more people goes to the community to get financial assistance, then we can foresee that the national security for finance, of course, the amount of course will be depleted lah, if more people comes to get assistance, and the assistance is tend to be longer period, because family find it struggling to find work. For example, now at this point of time, we are also looking at mental health concern, where people become stressed. Parents who have low tolerance towards the children becomes mentally stressed. I have one case, even lost the sleep because due to discipline the child. So we are looking at considerate mental stress that has come in for the family due to mental health. Moving on, what I see in the trend in raising family with children, like for example, what I say is we are looking at, I show this picture of tug of war. So it's very clear that, okay, that we have two parties coming in. Uh, both of them wants are not letting go, and both of them wants to be the winner. But so if both of them are not going to let go, what will happen? There'll be a struggle. So looking in with family raising, looking at the life cycle of family with children, we can look at family with young children, family with children in primary school. We can looking at children who are in the teenagers, or older parents with adult children. Yes, so there are very different kind of uh, life cycle, different family stages. But now we are looking more like family with young children, or even family with teenagers. So what are the trends is harsh parenting may occur. Uh, Parents are unable to manage the children, and that will link to caning or yelling as a form of physical punishment. So this comes in a very big concern, does because there is a very thin line between abuse and physical punishment. So when is when? So harsh parenting. Okay, if we are looking from the point of view of the parents, they feel that, oh, it's quite an easy kind of easy form of discipline. They themselves may think that it's a normal, because they themselves also being used this physical form of punishment by their parents. So it from generation to generation, they think that this is a normal, is a norm. So I'm using this. My parents use it on me. I'm using it on my children. My intention is good, because I want them to listen to me. I want them to listen to me, to do the homework, to go to bed early. Don't watch too much TV. So this is the reality that this is the trend that I see like in raising a family. Another increasing trend that has come up is the cyber world. As we all know, cyberbullying, the cyber is really unsafe. There's a lot of online scam, pornography coming in. So there are a lot of danger lurking. Parents really don't really know what the children are at. I had a colleague with a case that the children who are in primary five goes on to the Facebook to say that she feels stressed by the by because the parents are divorced, and she has to live with the grandparents, and she even posts on Facebook that she wants to kill herself. So we can see that people are using children at the age of P5 are using Facebook to talk to stranger, and we don't read then and the grandparents or even the adults figures or the significant other don't even know what they are doing. So these are the danger that we are looking at. Moving on, there is really, of course, the differences between middle and low income families. The common thing that I do encounter is the parenting issues. Usually the parenting style. So we are looking at what kind of parenting style. Is it the permissive, authoritative kind of parenting style? So the common thing is middle and or even low income family, they do face as what they have as the parenting issues. What I see differently is the financial stability. Low income family really face a hard time trying to survive in the society lah, because they are trying to, they don't really have a very sufficient bank saving, or they have to borrow from one family to another, lots of job. Some of them are not motivated to go out. Some of them comes in with have borrowing from money lender, unlicensed or licensed money lender, just to meet the basic needs to survive. Some have to know, live with big family because they can't afford their own housing. So these are the main different challenge when it comes to the different classes, the low income and the middle income family. So moving on, so we are looking at resources. If you can see that, okay, you can see that there are five figures in front of you. Uh, that's very clear that, okay, each of them are in a different stand. What I'm using here is the Virginia Satir's adopt that I use from Virginia Satir's contact. Okay, why I'm sharing this is because how often are we able to get our communication through to our children, how without getting a fight, right? That may be curious. Okay, how many of you are able to speak to your children heart to heart? Why are children why we often, why children are more unable to relate to us? What then parents will know, oh, what has happened to my parenting? So if we are looking at parenting style, we need to look at how do you cope when there is an unmet expectation. So we can see that there are five coping styles that has come out very clearly. The first one is blaming. Blaming is quite very easy to know. Okay, I'm in the right, you are in the wrong. Placating comes in I'm willing to sacrifice myself to satisfy you. So you can see this person will talk about placating herself just to win the other person around. Super reasonable talks about just on the surface, talking about the logic, talking about the norms, but without talk minus the self lah. So you hear people like, study is good for you, study will give you a good future. So this is how a super reasonable will sound. Looking on as irrelevant. Irrelevant, if you are talking about parenting, this person may be talking about eating ice cream or watching a movie. So this person is really out of the topic. So we put it as the irrelevant stand. We have the four coping stand, which really have mixed messages in the message, in the communication. That means the body language and the intention does not match. So how does your intention and your body language, or even your emotion match? Then that is the next coping stand that we are talking about congruent. How congruence communication is always what we are looking to achieve for, because congruent communication really helps you to be more grounded. You are more honest to yourself, you are able to handle yourself better, and you also cares about the other party. If you compare congruence and blaming is always about I'm right, you are wrong. So that minus out the other people in the context. Why am I sharing this? Because it ties in very nicely with the parenting tips that I want to share using another works from Satya, the five freedom. As you can see from 1 to 5, it really allows what we call congruency. We allow the other party, we also respect the other party to have the freedom of their own, to really to we recognize that, okay, we are human beings, we are unique, we are yes, we are different, but as a whole, uh, we are unique individual. That is a form of respect. I respect you and you respect me. So when it brings him into the parenting, it comes in very nicely. How can we get out from the power struggle? Because parenting talks about wanting to control the children. Parenting comes from authority, comes from power, but the basis, the yearning part is I want to be responsible for my children, but how do I sound? Do I want to sound like a tiger mom, or do I want to sound like a tiger father? Yeah. So how do I get rid of this style is to work towards the five freedom. It take times to go through each of the five freedom. I will not go through. It really allows us to see that your children is also an individual with uh, a thinking of their own. How do I work with my own expectation to work with the children so that to achieve a congruent communication? And that is what we can do is to look at the five freedom from Virginia Satir. Huh? Yeah. Uh, Next, these are the resources that I want to share. The parenting during the pandemic, right? You can actually serve online, but I will not touch that much. What I want to share on the parenting tips is one, two, three, four, and five. These five parenting tips are very important in what we call the positive parenting. uh, looking looking from the point of view at from the positive parenting comes the unconditional love from the family. Children are always looking for unconditional love from the family. Children don't dislike selfish. When so you hear children telling another friend that my mom is does not allow me to have privacy. My mom say that I must score 80 marks, then I'm a good child. My mom say that if I eat healthily, I eat the vegetable, then I'm a good child. I'm a good boy or I'm a good girl. So that this comes in very nicely that this parent do have an expectation for the child. So what has happened to the unconditional love that everyone has? So try to build in unconditional love. That means there is no expectation, there is no form of wanting the child to be what I think. I allow the child to be. The child has his own perspective, he has his own expectation. We do respect him as an individual. So these are the basic needs for raising an emotional, intelligent child, unconditional love from the family. Looking down is the safe and secure surrounding. Young children are dependent on adults. Adults, how do we protect the children so that the children can become independent? So we have to we as an adult or as a parents or as a significant others, we do have to create a safe and secure environment for the children to grow up in so that they can be more self-confident, then that will leads to independence. Children always looking for acceptance even when they are in the wrong. So they are looking for mama to forgive them, looking for father to accept them. So acceptance is very important. If you can try an experiment and you try to say I will not want to I don't want you anymore, I will sell you away. See how the child respond because the child yearns for acceptance. If you say such word, right, the child will feel anxiety, will feel anxious that I'm being rejected or I feel unloved. So that comes in very nicely that children needs a lot of acceptance in order to grow. We have to so sorry. So we have to set realistic goal uh to encourage the children. What I want to highlight is positive role model. How does children learn? They look at you. As a parent, are you doing the correct thing? Are you presenting in a positive manner? So positive role model is very important. How you respond will affect the children because children learns from you. Uh, so positive role model it is a very important aspect of of the parents. Next comes in very nicely. You have to praise them, give them a lot of love, give them a lot of way for them, we also need to be honest. If we are in the wrong, do admit your mistake. Don't hide your mistake. Children are very sensitive. They know that, okay, you are lying. So be honest. When you are setting a good example, you are setting a good example to your children. You are teaching them that to be honest is a virtue, and not to lie, not to tell things that is not true. Avoid sarcastic remark towards the children. Don't say the children are bad, because children, when you say that, you are hurting their self-esteem. We want to build emotional intelligent children, so we have to raise to build a strong self-esteem for them. So avoid such remarks that is hurtful towards them. They may not be, because they are still young, they may not know, okay, what's the impact even towards a teenager. If you have teenager children, right? If you use such sarcastic remark, you know how they respond to you. So give them space, praise them when they do a good job, set a good role model, unconditional love shown to them, provide a safe and secure surrounding. These are the parenting tips that I want to share for everyone. Coming in, okay, how do faith and parenting comes in, and it is an interesting piece of work. Oh, so sorry, huh? I think so. It's a very interesting piece of work that uh, even I did not, if I did not uh, have was not given the opportunity to share, I have not also did a research lah. So I did a research, and I find that, okay, although Taoist teaching don't really talk about parenting, but we can do adapt from how they use the teaching as a way of life, and way of life, and learn from them. I'm using chapter uh 58 as an example, because the what the text is telling us is to lead by example, which ties in very nicely from the previous slide, that being a good role model. So are you able to lead by example or not? This is what Lao Tzu has taught 5,000 years ago, using his own version to tell us that people do need to have a positive role model. So coming into parenting specifically, a positive role model do give the child a greater sense of knowing, okay, what is right and what is wrong, and how do I behave in this society. So this is to this slide, this comes to my end of my sharing. I hope you have a great time listening to my sharing. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Tan Teck Hui. I think that was very insightful, for you to share with us, what are the trends, and what is basically the landscape as we talk about family issues and managing children, both whether we talk about toddlers or adolescents, as well as young teenagers. But I guess some of the triggers that you highlighted, that I was hoping perhaps we can expand a little bit further, and hope we can talk a little bit more, especially when you talk about, the real struggle as an adult. If let's say you are a parent yourself, and you are experiencing the broken moments, a broken adult, how do you manage your own, your own issue, at the same time trying your best to provide that unconditional love, which is very essential to hold the families together, right? So I think that that's a real struggle. And there are another 2 points that you mentioned as well. There's a fine line, there's a thin line between physical abuse and punishment. um, Perhaps, that there will be some families might say that I do not intend to lead, I do not intend to use physical abuse, but in a moment of frustration, in a moment of tension, you might conscious or unconsciously, take that lead. And I guess that's, that's something that perhaps we can perhaps have a bit more comment on that.
Mm,
And
mm,
finally, the question, the statement that you made about as you know, now technology becomes more viral and people resort to technology and internet because of there's a limitation to human connections at the moment. It's also quite worrying to realize that unlike adults whom perhaps may know how to Google and find the right sources, genuine sources in finding help, we do not know yet to what extent, at least at the children of a young age up to teenagers, know what is genuine and what is not. And the examples that you shared, to me personally, that's quite worrying. But yeah, but hope we can come back to that and explore further how we can do this collectively as a faith communities. But thank you so much, Mr. Tekwi, on your presentation. Next, if I can have Michelle to jump in and do your sharing. Michelle.
Okay, hi everybody. Thank you so much for the earlier sharing by Mr. Tan and also Harmony Center for inviting me to share. I think it's really good that you have planned these webinars for everyone to actually have conversations about family and faith. And so let's share the screen now. Okay, here we go. I'd like to share the Baha'i perspective on today's episode. And before I begin, let me also familiarize you with some of the names which will appear in today's slides. I do not have any quote by Baha'u'llah, but Baha'u'llah is actually the founder of the Baha'i faith, and you will hear more about his teachings on family and parenting in the following slides. Secondly, you also see a number of quotes by Abdul Baha, who is the son of Baha'u'llah, and he was appointed as the authorized interpreter of his teachings. Third, we have Shoghi Effendi, who was appointed by Abdul Baha to be the guardian of the Baha'i faith. And finally, the Universal House of Justice, which is our international governing council. And this Universal House of Justice provides us guidance to the Baha'is so as to ensure the unity of thought and action to our community. And you will notice later on that quite a number of the slides that I'll be using, the background is actually taken from images of the Baha'i houses of worship from around the world. So I'll start off with one of the basic principles of the Baha'i faith, which is unity. And as you can see here in the quote, it emphasizes the importance of love and agreement in a family, which sets the foundation of how we can manage during the pandemic. We will experience different types of challenges during the circuit breaker time and the pandemic. And of course, one of those challenging things is actually the emotional struggles that we will experience. And we are all too familiar with how we try to accommodate one another in that shared space. I mean, if we are a little bit luckier, maybe we have a little bit more space, but some of us actually have those constraints to be managing within a small space where everybody has to try to work from home, and also our children who have to attend the online lessons as well. So one of the things that we try to emphasize in the Baha'i teachings is actually to practice a range of virtues and spiritual qualities. For example, being considerate to one another. Just for example, let's say, somebody needs to have a meeting, then how we show consideration for the other so that we do not disturb whoever it is who needs to have that meeting. And then being respectful of each other's needs, because all of us are going to have very different needs during that time. Being responsible for keeping track of time, especially when we have like work commitments or school commitments, right? And of course, most importantly, being helpful around the house as well. I must admit that there were times when tensions arose, and of course, we got in each other's way, and it can be really stressful because we had maybe some kind of discomfort having to deal with some of these unhappiness that came up. So I tried to stay focused on unity, which is one of the precepts of the Baha'i faith, and of course the well-being of the family. And so when I felt really overwhelmed with some of these tensions, I took myself away from that situation and then took time to pray and ask for God's guidance and assistance towards a better way of actually managing that conflict that I was facing. So you can see here another quotation, which is actually on family consultation. And this is actually also really an important thing that we use in the Baha'i faith as well. It would be really easy if everybody can agree on something, but of course that's not going to be possible because we do have differences of opinions and ideas. So this particular quote here, which is the tool, it shows us the tool that we use to maintain unity in our community. And some of these keywords here, like for example, courtesy, the way that we speak to one another, respect for the views of others, meaning that we listen respectfully to the ideas and perspectives of one another. And these will create an atmosphere which is conducive for the full and frank expression of opinions. Although consultation is primarily used for Baha'i meetings, we are actually reminded that consultation is very applicable for families as well. And from what I've described, I'm sure you can see why that is so. And we can use consultation for small matters or big matters. And you can imagine during the circuit breaker, one of the small issues would be probably deciding like what to eat. But when you have to decide that for a long period of time, then it doesn't really become a small issue, isn't it? And of course, what to do during the weekend as well. Those are just some of the examples of how we can even use consultation for some of these issues. And you can see here this quote, which I really like very much. It says that family is a very special kind of community. As I described earlier, each one of us have duties and responsibilities towards one another and to the family as a whole. We have to take care of one another and look after the well-being of our family. And there are also unique roles depending on our natural relationships. For example, my role in the family, one of them is, of course, being a mother as well as being a wife. And another example is like my sons, right? They not only they are our children, but they are also brothers to each other. So the part to highlight is our duty as parents to educate our children. So during the circuit breaker, when we spend a lot more quantity time with one another, it actually gives us an opportunity to influence and teach our children by our words and by our actions. Quite similar to what Mr. Tan had shared earlier on as well, being the role models. And of course, another key relationship that we have here within the family is the relationship between the parents. And we are guided by these passages like this. As you can see, the focus is on unity, friendship, a household which is well organized, where the couple is a source of happiness to others. I'm aware that the pandemic has increased the tension between couples. And firstly, we do have to acknowledge that this is a very unusual time that we are all living in, and none of us are prepared to manage the family under such circumstances. We feel anxious, uncomfortable, and uncertain about what to expect and how the future will unfold. So think about the things that we are in control of to keep working on them in a constructive, positive, and proactive way. Now, an extension of what I was talking about earlier on, a family is a microcosm of the world. In the previous slide, which I mentioned about a family being a special kind of community, that special kind of community is like a nation in miniature. So when many of our gatherings went online, we reached out to members of the community, which is of course like our extended family, who needed help with digital literacy, setting up Zoom and teaching them how to connect with the community and attending these gatherings online. And one of the couples who, we often saw regularly in our gatherings, they actually couldn't join us for some time because the husband had some problems with his eyes and he found it really tiring to look at the screen for a long time. So what we could do at that period of time was to actually reach out to them and to check in on them to see how they were actually coping when they were not really connected with all of us online. But thankfully, he's feeling a lot better now, and we are seeing the couple a lot more during many of our online gatherings. So take some time to just visualize what this quote is saying here. Enlarge the circle of the household, and you have the nation. Enlarge the circle of the nations, and you have all humanity. The conditions surrounding the family surround the nation. The happenings in the family are the happenings in the life of the nation. So it is in the great family of nations, for families are but an aggregate of families. So there are actually many types of community building activities that Baha'is engage in, and one of them is called devotional gatherings. So typically a few friends will gather in someone's home for communal prayers, but due to the restrictions in gatherings, we had to move these devotional gatherings to online platforms. And one of those special times which I cherish a lot was the devotionals that I had with my family who live in different parts of the world. So my parents actually live in a different part of Singapore. I make it sound like Singapore is a really big country, right? And both my sisters and their families, they live in a different part of the US. And the ones who actually join us for the devotionals then were my sister's in-laws who also live in a different part of the world. And it was really nice to be able to meet every week, despite the time difference, to pray together. So in addition to our individual prayer, many other families as well and members of the community also gathered online to pray together. Another activity that we have is the children's classes. We also consider it as spiritual classes for children because we believe in the development of spiritual qualities, which is really important for our children because they will be able to contribute to the well-being of our society. So these classes also went online when we could not gather in person. Actually, they are still online at this point in time, and many of families with children, they adapted these lessons and used the online platforms for their classes. My children have actually completed the children's program. So my youngest son is part of this junior youth group. And earlier this year, he actually missed a couple of sessions because of his activities, outside school. And that, because of the pandemic that happened, these activities actually stopped. And he had time to then resume the sessions with the junior youth group. So that's kind of like a blessing in disguise, I would say. My older son has already completed the junior youth programs and he has progressed to the study circles. And during the circuit breaker, I also found time to engage in those and participate in the study circles as well, and those were also held online. So it turned out to be an opportunity for many of us in the community to come together online and to participate in these study circles. And how this works is not merely a process of studying the writings for our individual spiritual development, but we are actually also reminded of our twofold moral purpose, where we are to engage in a path of service for the betterment of the world. We have to ask ourselves, what can we be? How can we be of service to our community? At a practical level, we actually saved quite a bit of time because we did not have to commute to attend any of these gatherings and meetings, and we could actually also be home with our children while attending these Baha'i meetings as well. So let me end my sharing by reading this quote. We cannot segregate the human heart from the environment outside us and say that once one of these is reformed, everything will be improved. Man is organic with the world. His inner life molds the environment and is itself also deeply affected by it. The one acts upon the other, and every abiding change in the life of man is the result of these mutual reactions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michelle, for such a heartfelt sharing from your side. And we have learned so much also to reflect from the sayings from the Baha'i teachings. Now, next, what I'm going to do is, before I move on to the next segment, I would like to encourage everyone to participate in our quick poll. This is a platform to give you opportunity to share your sentiments about the topic we are discussing, and the link is shared in both the Zoom chat as well as in the Facebook comment. Yeah. So in the next segment, I would like to invite our two discussants to join us. They will be sharing their thoughts and reflections based on the sharing done by the speakers. So tonight with us, we have Ustad Nuzhan Halim and also Ms. Swati Paraksha. So Ustad Nuzhan, he is a graduate he's graduated with a Bachelor of Arts in Quranic Exegesis and its Sciences from Al-Azhar University, Cairo, Egypt. He is currently employed as head of Da'wah department with the Religious Rehabilitation Group. He actively organizes Islamic learning and parenting program for the Muslim community with a special focus on religious awareness amongst Muslims. He's also a registered solemnizer with the Registry of Muslim Marriages, also known as ROMM, and a council member with the Religious Teachers Association, Pergas. And next, joining me together with Ustad Nuzhan is Ms. Swati Paraksha. So Ms. Swati graduated from Shivaji University, Kolhapur, Maharashtra with a Bachelor of Arts, and she completed numerous courses in oil painting, namely in India and Singapore, as well as in Nanyang Academy of Fine Arts in Singapore in 2018. Ms. Swati has been with the Singapore Jain Religious Society, also known as SJRS, for the past 18 years. She also teaches religious classes for young children at SJRS, as well as drama and dance to the young children in an annual SJRS function. She is currently working in the real estate sector and had been in the industry for the past 10 years. So welcome Ustad Nuzhan and also Ms. Swati Paraksha. Thank you for joining us along with Ms. Michelle and Mr. Tan Teck Hui. But before I invited them to share, thank you for those who have completed the poll and keep it coming. At the same time, I would like to invite you to share your thoughts and experiences. So drop us your questions and comments in both Zoom and our Facebook platform. I will pick the questions later on from both platforms, yeah? And if you have a question that you want to address to a specific person, like a specific speaker or discussant, feel free to specify their name. So let me invite Ustad Nuzhan to give your thoughts about the sharing earlier.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Liana, and thank you, Harmony Center, for organizing this. And I would like to give my greatest gratitude to also to both presenters, Mr. Tan Teck Hui and Ms. Michelle Quay, for that very inspiring parenting journey. I can so relate to everything there. Yeah. So my thought before I proceed with some resolutions, I'll just like to echo some of the speakers and the presenters has already highlighted. I thought so that faith, actually, people of different faith itself guards and strengthen our mind and heart. In this pandemic, to face these daily struggles to what is beyond just the bread and butter or education system that we have to go through, to look at more a deeper meaning of compassion, like what the Baha'i faith actually highlighted, words of courtesy, of compromising the meaning of family. I think faith really strengthened us in that part. So now what I observe is the complement and how to gel between this faith and parenting and family relationship. As for me, I'll just put it as an act of worship. I'll just like complement this faith and what are the parenting responsibilities as an act of devotion. So that is the strength that I bring myself through. So Mr. Tan Teck Hui mentioned get down on their level. That is something good. This is what also the Prophet Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, the Prophet Muhammad mentioned. He actually asked a young boy about his pet. What he even knows the young boy's name and his pets, what happened to his little bird and stuff like that. So we really have to get down to their level, because they are not really structured where I mean, for the toddlers, and this is for the toddlers category. And of course, this is a period that will never return, right? Something that you can never go back. I mean, your child is like 5 years old, 7 years old, and then you'll be missing this moment. So yeah, we'll have to get down to that level. I also applaud the cyber world that Mr. Tan Teck Hui highlighted. That is something I learned personally as a father of five. I can relate at this pandemic to TikTok, to the algorithm, to what kids have for self-validation when they are facing with online socials, for example. And of course, and this is also mentioned in our scriptures, how Joseph actually dream and tell his father about his dream. So it is like a generation gap that I will look on to strengthen and to close the gap. For us, for some Muslim, I think during Ramadan, this is a different Ramadan for everyone. So this pandemic, our elders especially, they definitely will always gather at the mosque and then pray in congregation and then having their iftar together with different communities. So it's a different Ramadan, but how we focus is back to the faith again. It is what exactly Ramadan is all about. What is the essence of Ramadan? And of course, without neglecting the importance to give them a call, to check upon them, to call them online. For me, uh, there are no perfect parents. I would say there are no perfect parents out there. So that is why we are here to learn and share from one another. And one of the reflection I can observe from today's initiative is, in such pandemic, faith and neighbors are the one who can really give the support to the vulnerable, to the single parents, to the less privileged, even families. Although we have our parents, like Michelle mentioned, it's like another part of Singapore is a bit further. So this is where different faith of different neighbors come together and check upon one another. I think that's very important for different faith to actually look on the importance of the less privileged and the vulnerable. So we, all of us, has these values of looking at families as a nation, as a community. So I think that is my takeaway from your presentation today, that we have to look for one another in the context of even neighbors, by looking about the vulnerable, to our young children, abusive parents, maybe abusive elders. We are the first point of contact, neighbors, and we are the people of different faith from different neighbors are those who can give this support, not just the family centers and everyone. I think that is my take about this whole session. Again, I thank Michelle and Mr. Tan Teck Hui for your inputs and for your thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ustad Nuzhan. I find it very refreshing that the whole context as you presented, you're also emphasizing this idea of neighbors, because earlier when we set the context, we are also mentioning about how there's one point of time, especially during the circuit breaker, where when you think that your family is just, maybe two blocks away, is very near, suddenly it becomes very far because it's, there's a limitation to visits, and your normal routine of getting the help from your immediate family is disrupted. So the one that's nearest to you is actually your neighbors, right? And then perhaps this is an opportunity for us to reflect, what is the idea, what is our understanding of neighbors? Is it just someone who just live our next door, or is it someone that our life, our values, and someone that also helps to shape a positive environment is actually our neighbors. Something that we might want to think through and might want to ponder over further. Thank you so much on that. So next, if I can add on to let Miss Swati to share your thoughts, Miss Swati.
Thanks, Liana. Thank you both the speaker for the information. It's a great opportunity to listen your positive and negative side of the today's pandemic situation. For my sake, regarding this pandemic, I believe in a faith like. Okay, this I believe this is a very good opportunity to stay with the family and with the children to get more interaction and understood each other. Um, this is as a Jainism, we believe we have three principles, like three basic principles: ahimsa, that is non-violence. Uh, non-attachment, that is aparigra, and nekantvad, that is main-sidedness. So we try to learn more about on these, and on this pandemic time I got a chance to stay with the children, like my teenage children, for more time and get to know each other more. We got to know more about the non-attachment. In this pandemic situation, we got to realize that with we can follow the basic principle of non-attachment and try to stay like with a limited resources. We try to stay in this situation. So yeah, there are like parenting situation. Yeah, I believe as Mr. Tantekwi say, yeah, there are different way of managing. There are positive and negative aspects of it. In this pandemic, for neighbor, I believe, yeah, as Mr. Halim say, that the neighbor is a key part. Like because of neighbor, they are the most nearest person I feel to us in this situation. Yeah, that is my take. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ms. Swati, for sharing from the giant perspective.
Yeah.
How do we make sense of this? At the same time, I'm trying to balance between our own physical and emotional well-being as a parent, and also managing kids. What is more challenging, perhaps, if you have a child who is still very young, and you can't really just use words to help them to explain and make sense why they can't meet their friends, why they have to stop a certain routines. Perhaps that would be much more challenging. But I will leave it those comments for the Q&A session. Perhaps we can revisit those ideas and perhaps come up with suggestions, or even more sharings based on our own experiences. What I will do right now is I will pick some questions from both the Zoom platform and the Facebook. At the moment, we have a couple of questions from our Zoom platform. So here we have one from Sister Shirin that says, okay, Ustaz Nuzhan, true, no perfect parent, people and we are all learning, but how do we deal with abusive parents or individuals who take advantage and emotionally, physically, or sexually abuse children or students under their care? Should they be excused or should they own up? Although it mentioned here Ustaz Nuzhan, but I would like to also give this opportunity for the rest of us to make comments. What are your thoughts on this? If I can repeat again. So the question here is that, how do we deal with abusive parents who take advantage and emotionally, physically, or sexually abuse children under their care? Should they be excused or should they own up? Yeah. Perhaps if I can start with Ustaz Nuzhan first.
Okay, yeah. This is exactly why I mentioned neighbors needs to play a part, because after observing on all the underlying issues, we find that sometimes someone just needs more motivation for them to report themselves or to report their spouses. So that motivation is not there during the pandemic. Even if it is during a normal non-pandemic days, non-COVID moments, spouse would be going to school, children will be going to school, spouse will be going to work. So there are other support system as in-laws, as families, as fathers and son and daughters and friends who will be noticing, who will be vigilant enough to give that support for them to report or to seek more support. But during pandemic, the nearest that are able to hear or you are able to know, so are your neighbors. So my suggestion is, number one, if it is during a pandemic, just get I mean, before a pandemic happens, we just need to be close to our neighbors. Even the prophet in our tradition in Islam, the prophet mentioned in the hadith, Gabriel, the angels told me to be nice to the neighbors until I thought, the prophet says, until I thought that neighbors are going to inherit my wealth. That close. And so with that relationship, I believe during a pandemic, you have more support rather than your direct family members. But of course, if the question posed for me to answer about your own spouse giving pressures and giving even emotional or even physical abuse, that is something that you need to own, and I mean, you need to report, not because you are not forgiving towards your spouse, but because you want everything to be settled happily. You are reporting, you are seeking help, you are taking support, not because you are going to damage the reputation of your family, but because simply you want your family to work to a better situation. You need support for your spouse to be able to help himself or herself out of that situation. You need support from other bodies so that your children may get the right understanding of what a family consists, what a parent consists. I personally would be giving two of my thoughts. Number one, if it is during a pandemic, then the nearest first correspondent would be our neighbors. And second, if it is now during a different time, then I should tell and give empowerment to your friends and families, whoever you know who are being abused, to take the right support and to report. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ustaz Nuzhan. Perhaps, Mr. Tan, if you have any comments to that,
Okay.
or to add on.
Yes. So can hear, right? So standing from the social worker's point of view, we will encourage family members or anyone that witness that there is an abuse, regardless of what kind of abuse, please report. Why I'm saying that is because we want to protect the vulnerable. We want to protect those that have that is not looking at like mental illness or other. So well, in the whole that young children, for example, we are protecting the vulnerable. So do report. The best way to report, you can call your neighbors if you are for safety measure. Usually I will encourage people to call the police. Police as the first line of defense to come in to protect the vulnerables. Why I'm saying that is we want to looking from the love point of view, right? We want the child or even the adult to get help, is because we want to reduce the trauma, because we know that in the abuse, people will have trauma, and trauma is a really, really long-term mental illness that or maybe a history that will affect the person the whole life. So it can destroy a person's life if we do not step in to stop this abuse. And it will also get away. The perpetrator will also get away. And we will not know for sure that when is the next time. If this time is using hand, the next time can they use a weapon? It's a very high possibility that death may come in, or even injuries that is permanent to the body. So we want to save the person. So we also want to protect the vulnerable. So my suggestion is is really to report to the police. If you know the police, and if you know, okay, there is the MSF hotline or please call the hotline and do a reporting. There are various services that the government or that has set up so there's protection service for all the vulnerable. We have the adult services, we have the child protection services, that is PPO, protection order that is around to protect the vulnerables. So do report. Thank you.
Right. Thank you so much, Mr. Tan. Miss Michelle and Miss Swati, if you have anything to add on with regards to the question, Miss Michelle.
Mm. I mean, I do work with some of these cases in the schools. So actually, that's also a really good avenue to be able to reach out. You know, and sometimes when we are not really very sure about what to do, I mean, I do echo what Mr. Tan was saying earlier on about actually, like, for example, calling the National Care Hotline to get some support and to maybe ask for some advice about what to do. So I know that you have used some really strong words like report, right? I guess I would say that on one hand, yeah, of course, we need to be able to highlight some of these issues because we want to take care of the vulnerable, like what you were saying earlier on. But we also know that what tends to happen is that there are possibly also some mental health related issues which do come up. And we want to be able to support those family members who may have some of these issues. And of course, you know, if we actually facilitate a really healthy conversation, some of them may actually become very open to maybe getting some family therapy or, you know, getting help for their mental health issues. Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you so much. That's very useful, Miss Michelle. Miss Swati, do you have anything to comment on this?
No, I believe that you are the person. He need to take initiative to report, and either you can take help from your neighbor, or you have to take your own initiative to report a person. Yeah,
Right.
that's
Okay. Thank you so much, Miss Swati. I would like to give more opportunity to discuss on other areas of the questions. If let's say you have more questions regarding to family violence and conflict, we have an episode for that specifically just to address on that particular issue. Yeah. So we have a next question that I would like to bring it out to all the speaker and discussant. So the next question is: I know it's a cliche, but communicating and having conversation with children are not necessarily embedded in the style of Asian parents. I wonder how true this is and whether this varies across socioeconomic status. At least to me personally, that is something that, you know, I can sort of like resonate. You talk about Asian parents, usually it's like, okay, I told you to do this, do lah. You know, that there's not much of reasoning a why in that sense. And especially even more, and we talk about pandemic, right? Sometimes you just want things to happen fast, or you need to sort things out fast. It's sort of like easier to apply the Asian parent style, just do and just make sure everything is done. Like, you know, avoid asking me too much question because I'm also being overwhelmed by other issues that I need to attend to, for example. So I guess the question is also, yeah, how do you reconcile this? Because earlier Mr. Tan said it's very important, you know, there are some pointers, there are some suggestions that he made, in which if we look at all the main suggestion, it requires a lot of justification, a lot of patience to help the other party to understand, and that requires a lot of energy to communicate and be patient about it. Yet as an Asian, like you said, sometimes you just want to apply the tiger methodology, for example. Yeah. So perhaps if you can comment, Mr. Tan, in for this question.
Yeah. So faith come in very good, very strong, handy in this aspect. Why faith come in very strongly? Because those with religion background, they have trained in raising the self-awareness, because talking about self-awareness is through understanding yourself. You are able to manage yourself. When you are better at managing yourself, you are able to relate to others. And how do we do that? Is through sometimes tools such as meditation, prayers, and even religious teaching. Yeah. So when a person who is more self-aware, this person is more able to handle the situation in a more calming way. Why I'm saying, because we can manage our emotion. Emotion is always the destructive kind of things that we may be really, I would say more like react. Are you able to respond or do you want to react? So religious teaching or meditation teach us to be able to respond to a situation. Because in Asian context, we just want to solve a problem that we can see very clearly. This is as a result of Asian background is the power struggle. The man is more important than the female. The mother has more authority to the child. Uh, this is what we learn from the Asian context. So that's why we have to borrow from the religious context that everyone are equal, right? I think in Taoism we talk about yin and yang. This yin and yang are equal, and the yin has a component of the yang and the yang has this component of the yin. So we have to borrow from such concept to come in very clearly that we are of equal position. We don't want to be in a position that's higher power and lower power. That comes when that comes in, right, will come in as conflict or struggle. Listen to me, like the tiger mom. So borrowing such context into the situation, what we want is more self-control. We are able to aware that, okay, my anger is coming. What can I do to avoid the conflict? When can I step out, take time out? When I'm calmer, then I go in. Can I say it straight from my heart in a the congruent way, right? Are you able to say it out congruently? That means your message and your body language matches, and you have these other people in mind. Uh, it's really not easy. You have to train. You have to train your mentality. You have to train your awareness. So where does that training start from? This come from the everyday prayers, everyday meditation, or even writing, chanting, or whatever some of the religion may be doing. So that give us on that. Another thing is we want to focus on the behavior and not the person. It's the behavior that is the issues. By focusing on the behavior, we are not penalizing on the person. That makes us easier to communicate towards the other person. So this is my sharing for some of my answer to that to the question. Mm.
Right, right. Thank you so much, Mr. Tan. I think you brought a very important point when you mentioned about whether when things happen, whether you want to respond or you want to react, something that across all faith we can relate to it. I guess perhaps Ustad Nuzhan can also agree with me. Like in the Islamic tradition, we are also encouraged, if let's say your parents seeking some help or call you and you don't say the or the like like oh my god, or you start to sign. And so that itself, the religious tradition itself say like you respond to them in the best manner as you can, rather than give all this reaction. And also perhaps if you look at the digital world right now, we are being trained to react more than respond, right? If you see someone comment, the first thing that you look into, you want to look at which emoji that you want to choose, rather than which comment or what comment would you like to give a response to it. So I guess that's something that we want to reflect upon as well. um, we have two more questions here, in which I would like to perhaps distribute it accordingly to our different speakers and discussants today. So that we have a one question: how do we ensure that our young ones are more discerning towards what they see or read online, as its world that has little boundaries? So perhaps if I can refer this question to Michelle, you have two young boys, right? You have teenagers, and now, as you can see, it's very much borderless. It's very little boundaries. How do you deal with this? What are some of perhaps your tips or techniques that you apply to your boys in helping to build that trust, and helping them, giving them that safe space and a safe conversation, especially about the world out there. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that that's a really good question, especially since we are all bombarded by a lot of these online stuff, right? I think earlier on, the question about the communication part, I think that this is probably one of the most important thing that we can do as a family to be able to make it kind of like conducive for that kind of conversation to happen within the family. Because if supposing we set it up in such a way that, let's say, they read something online or they have an opinion about something, and then we don't like jump to certain conclusions, we listen to what they have to say, right? So that practicing of actually being open to what ideas they have or what they may have read. Sometimes it may be a little bit scary for us. We'll be like, oh my goodness, why are you reading something like that? But we kind of like do a little bit of a check-in on how we are feeling about what we may have heard them share. And then after that, they know that we are not going to jump on a particular thing. So they would be more open to maybe have that conversation to then hear, oh, what do you think about something like that? And then having that conversation and discussion will be really helpful for them to then think through what is it that they agree with or disagree with. And that comes back to some of those principles that we were talking about earlier, that probably in your respective faiths. So with my children as well, we would then take a look at what's important in our beliefs. Whether is this appropriate or not really appropriate? Is this a kind thing to do, or is this really quite mean, and that's actually not a very nice thing to be responding to somebody else online? So that goes back to the spiritual qualities and principles that we do believe in, and then we have some conversations about it. So we are really careful also about the type of languaging. So how are we then reacting? If we disagree with a particular thing, then do we start saying unkind things, which then, they will be able to see, oh, this is not really the way that they would like to react or respond to something. So just basing on those spiritual principles and qualities, and to have that openness in conversation is really important.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the tips. I think that's very, very useful. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to move to the last question. And this last question, I would like to address it to Ustaz Nuzhan and also Ms. Swati. So the last question is, how did you all explain the reason why this pandemic is happening to young children? Ustaz Nuzhan, you have young children. I know I've seen your YouTube channels, and you've had them singing. Sometimes, especially like in COVID, sometimes you tend to forget to make all the fun things because you are just so clouded with your worries and anxiety. So seeing your videos, it's to me, it's like very hopeful to sort of like, to see that light amidst of that darkness. So perhaps if you can share with us, how do you help explain or have that reasoning with your children about this pandemic?
Thank you. I think Mr. Tan earlier mentioned that this whole pandemic happens so that we may have more time with them. That is one of the positive side. So one of the explanation I gave them is for us to be together more. I've been taking your time for last 2 years during Ramadan. Even we are always outside working, and as a father, Mr. Tan also mentioned in his previous slides, a more that time with the mother, because I always tell them that mom has surpassed me for a very quite long time. They have a head start. They gave birth to you. They actually feed you, and they actually brought you into this world from their wombs. So this is where I want to be on par with her now. So this is one of my explanation, and this is where we can get to do all the practicalities in the family. I managed to sing along with them. I managed to do ablution practical evolution rather than just theoretical. How do we actually emphasize on good communication and stuff? And also one of the highlight that I share with them, this is where God wants family to get together. This is where God wants the flora and fauna, the nature, to have a bit of rest, and for us to pause for a moment to look at where we are and what are importance in our daily life. This is exactly what I told them, so that we can be together. I can cherish these moments with you, and hear you and listen to you and tell you bedtime stories, and even look at the sky. One of the days I was taking a picture of the sky. Look at how bright the sky is during this pandemic, that everyone actually stopped polluting the world. So this is how we explain to the young ones. Yeah.
Right. I like the idea that you focused on the sky, because before pandemic, if you talk about the sky, it sort of makes you think like whether you are late for work or whether you are early in that sense, like while you're rushing for your train. But now you sort of like encourage people to stop, even to just look at the little things around you, even if it's just a grass that turns from brown to green, or like like you say, even perhaps this time around the shades of the clouds are different. Something that we may take for granted for a long time because we are always on a rush. And thank you so much for revisiting that idea to appreciate the nature of Ustad Nozhan. Miss Swati, what about you?
Okay, I believe in this period. In fact, I have two teenage children. Like I have one daughter and one son. I got very good time with them to communicate, to discuss a certain topic, to know them more, and to get very good bonding with them. That is a good. This is a good time to go with them, cycling and explore things. And to teach them a more Jain values by talking to them and by discussing with them about the values. So these are the positive things I believe I got from this pandemic time. Yes.
Right. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you for sharing with us on that. So now, thank you everyone for your insights and also your sharings earlier. But before I wrap up, I would like to invite everyone to give a 1 minute key takeaway that you would like our participants and audiences here to further reflect or digest out of tonight's conversation. So if I can start with Mr. Tan.
Okay. Tonight's topic is really talking about parentings and parentings and family. So the words that I would like to use is just be a good enough parents. Yes. Don't worry that you are lousy. Because if you are thinking such thoughts will have such perspective will it actually comes in as action, because you feel that I'm not a good parent, I have to work harder and harder, but at the end of the day you lost yourself. You become fed up, frustrated, and your child is not listening to you. So we always advise parents to be just good enough parents. Just be yourself. You can do the task. Just be good enough. Thank you.
Right. Thank you so much, Mr. Tan. Just to add quickly to all parents out there who's watching this, please give a pat on your back. I think the idea of there's no such thing as a perfect parent, as Ustad Nuzhan saying. Everyone is, we are still constantly trying to learn our best and live our best in our daily basis. So yeah, that thank you for that, Mr. Tan. Next, if I can have Michelle.
Well, I would like to remind everybody about the family being a microcosm of the world. And so, if we would like to actually see that kind of peace and harmony in the world, then we want to try to maintain that unity within the family. And one of those tips is actually to develop some of these spiritual qualities so that the way that we will interact with one another will actually be a lot more positive. And of course, that means we need to take care of our own personal well being, so that we can take care of one another within the family and also the wider community.
Thank you so much, Ms. Michelle. Self-care is very, very, it's very essential. It's very important, more so important, especially during COVID. Next, if I can have Ustad Nuzhan.
So my takeaway is, of course, no parent is a perfect parent. It is a struggle. We have to be here regardless of different, not just parenting style, but different faith even, to learn from one another, to be righteous parents. And of course, also, um, uh, our faith actually makes us stronger to continue this journey. And lastly, what do I say? At the end of the day, uh, is it you teaching them, or just founder, or they are teaching you how to be parents? Instead of just look at in a different side, are you teaching them to be great children, or actually they are teaching you to be great human being? That is something that we always will try to look around these issues. Thanks.
Right. Thank you so much, Ustad. I think that was quite a profound reflection to think about that two-way impact. Yeah, it's not just about you, but it's also about the other party that you want to bring that changes or influence positively. And last but not least, Miss Swati.
Yes. Okay. Regarding the parenting, I believe this is a great opportunity we get from this pandemic to get closer to a family, to our children, and get to know each other more deeply and I can say more understanding about bonding, making a bonding with each other. So every parent has a different aspect for their children. So this is a great opportunity to talk to them.
Right.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ms. Swati, and thank you so much, everyone, for the great discussion tonight. I hope this will further encourage us to keep a lookout on each other and continue to share some best practices that can help improve parent-children relationship. But I think more importantly, what's special tonight is that we see parents of a different faith coming together and and find ways in making improvements. At the same time, be, I think, also practicing humility, that by the end of the day we are just like Mr. Tan say, we are just ourselves. We are still trying to make improvements, but it's very hopeful to see parents of of other faith, of other communities, are also finding ways, and perhaps this can be sort of a collective effort in which we can sort of like cross exchange of information, best practices, and some tips that we can learn from one another in building a more positive society. Yeah. So thank you once again for your inputs and your sharings, and also to everyone out there. Do help us by filling up the evaluation from the via link from the link that we shared in our Zoom chat box and also the Facebook comment. And keep a lookout on the third episode of next week, where we'll be talking on family and displacement, faith and positive aging in times of pandemic. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for all your interactions and your comments, and have a great night. Thank you.